I don't know who needs to hear this right now, but stop being afraid of being wrong, dude. You're a fucking human being. You're gonna be wrong from time to time. It's not that big of a deal. In fact, it only becomes a big deal when you refuse to acknowledge it and double down on some bullshit, right? Like, when you refuse to acknowledge that you were wrong, all you're demonstrating to people is that you're super insecure. Because if you were confident in yourself, you wouldn't fucking care what they think and that they know you were wrong about some shit. It doesn't matter. The other thing you're establishing to them is that you probably can't be trusted. Because who the fuck's going to trust somebody who's out here lying to themselves? You know? I mean, when I recognize that someone I'm dealing with can't acknowledge that they're wrong over some stupid, insignificant shit, I immediately lose a bunch of respect for that person. It's childish, is what it is. And that's what we have here. You know, we got a bunch of fucking man children running around the place. They look like men, but up here, fucking children. Once you understand that, start to understand the fact that the world up until this point has been run almost exclusively by man children, right? It also helps explain the fact why 80% of women are attracted to 20% of men, because that's how many of us are actually men and are not just fucking grown temper tantrums running around. Not complicated to me, you know? I guess the question to ask yourself now is, what do you want to be? You want to be a man, you want to be a fucking man-child. Where I'm sitting, we got more than enough man-children in the world. More than enough. Use some more men, though. It's weird how, as men, we're basically taught to bully each other and taught that that's just normal behavior. And if you don't like it, you're a fucking pussy. I mean, the way I thought about it for years is that my last bully became one of my friends. And it's, like, legitimately true. Like, the dude was picking on me. It was the last time that I remember ever, you know, going to a teacher to report that sort of thing. And, you know, afterward, the kid kind of said, like, hey, man, I don't know, if you didn't like it, you could have said something, whatever, da-da-da. And I guess what I learned out of that is, like, oh, I can talk back. I don't have to just sit here and take it. You know, I've felt for a long time, and I stand by it, that this is a dude, this kid Kenny I went to high school with. He taught me a lot about shit, about life, about being a man. But I guess I've recently started thinking more and more that shit is fucked up. And you know, the other funny thing that men do, we like to make jokes about, like, how women treat each other, right? We like to joke about, like, you know, the Instagram comments or whatever, whenever a chubby girl posts a new profile pic, and oh my god, you look so beautiful, da da da. Like, don't get me wrong, it's funny. I've laughed at the memes. I've laughed at some threads too, but like, we could use some of that shit in our lives, in our relationships, you know? Like, I've been in threads where, you know, it's a bunch of dudes basically doing the dude version of that shit, calling each other kings and all that shit, and I don't know, it's beautiful, man. It's wholesome. We all need some of that shit in our lives. And then, of course, there's the fact that men have a much higher likelihood of you know, wanting to remove themselves from this place. And we like to blame that on all sorts of other shit and never ask the question, like, maybe we should stop being so shitty to each other. I mean, yeah, absolutely. Like, listen, I love shit talking as much as the next guy, but, you know, some of us out here may be taking that shit a little too far. I gotta imagine we all know somebody who's, like, you know, made it their whole fucking personality. And it's usually the same type of dude, too, right? Like, they can never understand that sometimes, you know, people going through some shit, they're just not in the fucking mood for it, right? You gotta man the fuck up and just deal with it. Shit, even their fucking friends can't stand them most of the time. These dudes are just fucking loud and keep showing up, you know? Keep inserting themselves and shit. Listen, we're all human. We're all going through some shit, right? I guess for me, it's more, you know, as someone who was picked on as a kid and it did fuck with me a lot, I try to make sure, I'm not fucking really hurting somebody's feeling. Like, supposed to be fun. Like I said in the last video, I mean, this is all pretty new thoughts for me. To be honest, it was really after that whole Oscar slap incident that I kind of first considered that maybe this whole shit talking thing we do is, you know, inherently a little fucked up as a culture, right? I mean, as a culture, is it really that great for us overall? I don't know. Going back to that dude, right, who all his friends think he's a fucking dickhead. I mean, I gotta imagine pretty much 10 times out of 10, that's a person who's just deeply uncomfortable with themselves and just projecting all that shit outward. And like all things in life, it's only going to be healthy with balance. I mean, shit talking is a really effective tool to communicate shit sometimes. You know? People sometimes, we struggle to have those conversations, but you can fucking bust somebody's balls and kind of tell them how you really feel sometimes, you know? I guess the point is, talk your shit, man, but maybe try not to be such a fucking dickhead about it. There's nothing inherently wrong with having a big ego. It's just that, like all things in life, it needs to be used in moderation. And unfortunately, when it comes to ego, we live in a society that encourages us to do the opposite. I think egos become one of these buzzwords, I like to call them. These are words that, have come to take on a different meaning in public conversations, in media discussions and whatnot. So in the case of ego, I think when a lot of people hear that word, the gut reaction is to think about, narcissism, is to think about someone who's fully self-centered. And yes, that is an example of an ego that's, grown out of control, that's not been kept in check, that's not been used in moderation. But that's not all an ego is there for. Each and every one of us has an ego. It's the part of you that believes in yourself. Like, literally, if you believe in yourself in any way, shape, or form, you believe that you're capable of getting up and putting shoes on and tying your shoes, that thought comes from your ego. That's the part of your brain that regulates that kind of thinking. And when it comes to society, I mean, egos are absolutely necessary in society. We have never, nor will we ever, elect someone to any office of any kind that doesn't have a big ego. It's just not going to happen. You're never going to get a person who's going to put themselves through the rigmarole of having to do all that who doesn't have a big ego. It doesn't happen. It doesn't exist. And like with a lot of things in life, unfortunately, we tend to focus on the negative connotations, right? The idea that ego is a purely self-centered thing. It's not the way I think of it. Yes, ego is something you use to believe in yourself, but it's also something you use to believe in the people around you, to believe in your family, your friends, your community, your country. All that comes from ego. And when the energy of a massive ego is projected outward, it can be used for the betterment of humanity. It can be used to inspire the people around you to believe in themselves, believe in their community, believe in their country. The problem comes about when people with big egos can't admit or acknowledge the fact that they have big egos. It becomes the elephant in the room. Call your ego out, keep it in check, it'll work for you. Otherwise, you're working for it. So the problem with being mad all the time is that you're a human being and you have a range of emotions just like everyone else. Like, I fully believe that every single human being on this planet has the same emotional spectrum. Now, how you react to things is different, right? Some people are quiet, some people are overdramatic. There's a full range of behaviors there. But internally, on the emotional level, we're all the fucking same, dude. I promise you, we are all the same. So if you're only ever allowed to be mad, and you're an emotional human being just like the rest of us, but what happens when you feel sad? What happens when you feel hurt? What happens when you feel something else? Well, you push it down, you bury it, you ignore it. Eventually, you'll get mad. It'll come out in anger. But the problem is, if anger is not the root of what you're feeling, then you're never really going to understand what you're mad about. You're just always going to be mad about shit. It's funny because I think a lot of guys think that emotions are like some super complex thing. They're not. They're logical, just like everything else going on here. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. You hurt somebody's feelings, they're gonna feel some shit. It's not complicated. The thing is, if all you ever feel is anger and maybe the occasional happiness or whatever, then I mean, I don't know how else to say it, dude. You're operating at a third grade level, right? The logic is there, but you're never going to understand with a limited spectrum, with that limited range. You got to let yourself feel the shit you're supposed to feel. That's what you're here for. That's what we're all here for. And I know sometimes it feels like society doesn't want men to feel shit like that. But I promise you, that's fucking bullshit. Whoever's telling you that is fucking lying to you. This is a big old fucking world with 8 billion fucking people in it. And there are a lot of us who are ready to let men feel what they need to feel. Feel your shit, man. It'll get better. I promise you. Take care of yourself. Yeah, unfortunately our brains are actually pretty lazy. And they just want to keep, traveling the same pathways they always do. It's going to take time to feel different emotions that you've been suppressing for a while. I wish I had a better answer, but it's just the reality. And to be honest, emotional regulation in general is a really weird thing. I was all over the fucking place today, man. I mean, I don't even know where to begin. Work was a shit show, as it always is, but particularly so. I was just running around all fucking day. Barely got anything done. But there were good things too, my notifications were going off. I had a video that was doing pretty well. And when I finally got to check the comments, I got a bunch of nice comments on that, and it felt really good. Thank you guys for that. And then I get home, and I'm excited. I get to do my new favorite thing. I get to share my thoughts on this stupid app. And my fucking router decides today's the day it's not gonna fucking work. I got a fucking Nighthawk like a year ago. It's fucking a year old, and I don't understand. I'm fucking pissed. But really, I'm fucking scared. Terrified. I've too much time, too much of my life wasted to get to this point. And I know that this is the most important thing, and this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And that scares me even more, because I fucking need it to work desperately. And this fact hangs over everything I do. It's never not on my mind. It's never not a factor in what I'm feeling. So the truth is, I kind of lied yesterday. Emotions they're logical, but they're complicated, because we're complicated. There's a lot going on here. And there's so much more that I want to say here, but this stupid fucking app and my stupid fucking phone won't let me make videos longer than 3 minutes. And I'm running out of fucking time already. Thank you guys. I hope this helps. Sorry I can't do better today. I don't know who needs to hear this right now, but asking for forgiveness is fucking bullshit. You want to be forgiven for something, try actually being fucking sorry. The way apologies work, right, is that someone, an individual or a group, does something to another individual or another group that is not appreciated, right? Doesn't really matter the intent. If people don't appreciate what you're doing, you got to acknowledge that, right? So that's the first step. Second step, the individual or group apologizes, right? Third step, the offended individual or group then gets to decide if they forgive. That's how that works. This whole thing of asking someone else for forgiveness is basically weaponized niceness, right? It's acting as though you're being the bigger person, and now if they choose not to forgive you, that they're somehow lesser. Fuck that, dude. If you're really sorry, just fucking be sorry. And of course, it's not a surprise that this is a big trend that we're seeing in churches now, right? Sort of another control tactic, you could argue. I mean, one of the big things that inspired this thought in me was, a few months ago, seeing that video of the pastor trying to ask his congregation for forgiveness for a relationship that he wasn't being fully honest with them about, right? It had been happening for a lot longer, and it originated with a much younger individual than he was letting on when he had the balls to stand up there and ask them for forgiveness. Then the other big example that comes to mind was watching, I forget which special it is, but one of the Gerard Carmichael specials on HBO there, where his mom was sitting down with a pastor who was basically telling her that she had to forgive his father for, years of lies. And it's like, no, that's fucking bullshit. That's her decision to make. See, everything in life comes down to context, right? So if what you're apologizing for is something small, something trivial, then yeah, it hopefully shouldn't be a big deal to be able to move past and put behind you. If what you're apologizing for is something that resulted in like a major breach of trust that broke down the way this person sees you, then you're gonna have to live with that shit for like a long time. You're gonna have to rebuild that. It's not gonna happen overnight. The key to being sorry is just being sorry, being able to admit that you were wrong, and allow the other person, the other group, whatever, to feel what they need to feel, to process it in their own way. And everyone's gonna, feel their own shit and move through it in their own way. Feelings are stupid and complicated sometimes, but the only way to get through it is to move through them, not move past them.